Hey everybody, welcome back to Live Life Simple. I'm recording this video in January, which doesn't feel like I should be doing a gardening video, but we're gonna set up a Worm Factory 360 to do some vermicomposting. And there's no better time to do vermicomposting and get your worm factory or worm farm started before you actually need the compost. So that's what we're gonna do today. We're gonna set this up. We're gonna talk about the benefits of this, and this is gonna go hand in hand with my video for next week, which is gonna be freeze drying compost and rehydrating it. We're going to talk about all the benefits of that, but let's get into this Worm Factory 360. So what in the heck is a Worm Factory 360? This is more or less a series of containers, and you put worms in it. Red wigglers actually are the best for composting and vermicomposting. And they will actually just kind of tear apart all of your food scraps, your organics. They will turn it into pretty much the finest compost that is known to man. And before we get into this, I want to point out that you can definitely make one of these from scratch on your own. The reason why I like this one, the Worm Factory 360, is that it is layered. So you can actually take the trays off as the compost is done at the bottom. Everything rotates to the top. So you can keep rotating and pulling out the compost that's finished while you continue the process in the other trays, and then you start a new tray on the top after you dump that compost out. And first things first, I want to show you something that is a pretty rare sight these days. Made in the USA. Wow. Okay, so this is your lid. Obviously, this has general instructions on it, and it has general things that you can put in the compost. It does not recommend citrus, and it does not recommend a few other things like onions or spicy foods. You can read that when you get yours. Then you're gonna have 3 or 4 layers of these gridded trays that will allow moisture to flow down. This also has a spigot. This allows you to drain off what most would call worm tea or worm compost tea. This also comes with this little pail / water that will slide right under here. It'll catch your worm compost tea, and then you can use that tea because it's full of microorganisms and things. You can use that to water your decorative plants. It's not recommended that you use it to water your edible plants or stuff that's in your garden. Other things that are included are the bedding items, which is going to be some coconut coir. That's kind of just a compressed coconut fiber. This holds a lot of moisture, and this stuff is really cool. We'll show you that in a little bit. This is just kind of newspaper scraps used for your starter bedding. This is pumice and rock dust. This helps the worms kind of just run through their digestive system. Also comes with a thermometer that makes it so you can keep an eye on your ideal temperature for your worms, which is going to be 40 to 80 degrees. The closer you get to 80 degrees, your worms are going to be more active and the healthier they're going to be. You're also going to have a cultivator. This will help you kind of move stuff around, and a scraper. You'll notice one important thing this does not come with. It does not come with worms, which is the most important part of this. Mine are actually on the way. I ordered mine from Uncle Jim's worm farm, so my worms should be here any minute. So I want to have this set up, so while I go through the rest of this, let's just do the quick setup, and I'll show you how to get your worm factory ready for the worms, and then we'll kind of do like an initial test run. We'll put the worms in. And the first thing we need to do is get the bedding ready, because it will take a second. You're gonna take this coconut coir brick and just use half of it. We're gonna break it in half, and we're gonna add half of this bag of newspaper shreds as well. And we're gonna add some water to this, and that coconut coir is gonna soak up a ton of water, and it will expand in a huge way. And that's going to keep expanding in the next few minutes. We're going to take a separate bowl and take some of this rock dust. We're going to do 1 tablespoon of this rock dust and put that in there, and then half of this bag of the pumice. Mix that together, and then that's going to get mixed in with our other mixture once this is all the way expanded. And now I'm just going to move over this damp newspaper, and you can see that the stuff that's been exposed to water on this core is starting to increase in size quite a bit. It's still pretty dry, so I'm going to add some more water to it, and you can see as I pour this on here, it really starts to expand big time. So once you think this is fully expanded, you don't want water to be dripping off of this. but you do want to be able to just maybe squeeze like a couple drops out of it if you squeeze it with your hand. We're gonna add that to the rest of the mixture, and this will actually keep expanding over time if it has the ability to do so still. So we're gonna mix all of this. And then the last thing we need to do to get this bedding ready is add 1 or 2 cupfuls of garden soil into here, and we're just gonna mix all of it together. And this is gonna make some happy worms. There's a lot of good stuff in here already, and that'll get them a good start. Now we're ready for our first tray. So just set that first tray on top of here, and only on the first time you're gonna need to line the bottom of this tray. So I actually took part of the cardboard box, peeled a little bit of one layer off, and that will sit down in there really nice, and over time that will deteriorate and allow the worms to do what they need to do. We're gonna take that compost mixture and just add that right on top of here. So now you can see once this compost is sitting on top of that paper, newspaper, or whatever you want to use. I'm using a cardboard box. Then it can't actually go down into the bottom below this and make a big mess underneath. This is gonna make for some happy worms. This is a really good mix of stuff that they need. This will be a great starter for the worms. But we're still gonna need some material for them to turn into compost. So in one corner, you need to put 2 to 3 cups of food. So I have been saving some food scraps. I've got some avocados here. I've got some apple cores. I've got some coffee grounds, all kinds of stuff in here. But this will all make great items for these worms to just devour and turn into that awesome vermicompost. So all of your food scraps that you put in here are gonna be about 80% water. That's gonna help keep all of this material moist, but if you do ever think that you need some extra moisture, it's handy to have a spray bottle. You can just kind of squirt that down and keep some extra moisture in there. Just make sure you're not getting too much in there. And perfect timing, FedEx just delivered my Uncle Jim's worm farm materials. I got 250 red wigglers, I got some extra worm food, and then a big block of that coconut core. That'll just be handy for bedding and stuff in the future when you're adding extra trays. So this comes wrapped in some newspaper for extra moisture, and then just a little bag like that. And Uncle Jim's has just about anything you can want if you're gonna do vermicompost and use some worms to compost your food. I'll put a link down in the description for Uncle Jim's. You can check them out, see if they have what you need. So the worms are not super active right now. As you can see, they've been in the cold because it's cold outside, and it's cold in a FedEx truck too, I'm sure. But once these guys get going, they're gonna devour half of their body weight per day, each worm is. And they're also going to reproduce and double their population within 2 to 3 months. And you can kind of see over here, when worms get really cold, they'll ball up like that. It just keeps them warm. It's also advised to add about a half a cup of water to this peat moss and the worms once you get them, or you can just take this spray bottle and kind of hit them with some water a little bit. You can see that kind of wakes them up. So what we're gonna do, we're actually going to layer this. You're gonna wanna leave the worms alone for a couple days, 2 or 3 days, but we're gonna cover them up with some newspaper, just like that. And when you're first starting out, it's really important to watch your moisture level on this. So if your newspaper sheet is too much moisture, you can also do some shredded newspaper scraps like this, and this will help regulate the moisture quite a bit better. A couple things to note with your worms: keep them out of direct sunlight. If you're gonna have them outside, they need to be in a shaded area. You need to make sure that that soil temperature is in between that 40 and 80 degrees. You're gonna wanna leave your worms alone for 2 or 3 days just to get them acclimated to their new habitat. And if you wanna keep them discouraged from crawling out in the beginning, just keep them in a lighted area or a room with a light in it. And you'll know when it's time to put a new layer on here, because your first layer or your bottom layer is going to be very consistent with its look and its soil, and it's also going to be almost up to the top here. So once it's a very consistent, almost like a small pellet look to it, you will know that there's not much to compost in there, and you're ready to put another layer on top. When you do that, just line a tray with this newspaper on the bottom, and then you'll add the remaining amount of your coconut coir and your pumice and all that stuff, maybe a little bit of soil along with some more food for them to eat, and then you can just keep gradually stacking this up. It'll probably take 3 or 4 months before you're ready for all 4 trays. And when a tray is complete, that's gonna be the bottom tray. That's gonna be all of your vermicompost. You're gonna take that, if there's any worms or anything left, separate those worms out, add them to a top tray, dump your vermicompost out, rotate your bottom tray up to the top, and you just keep repeating that cycle forever if you want to. And over time, this is actually going to compost a lot faster because your worm population will just keep increasing over time. So 3 to 4 months is gonna be perfect for me because it's gonna be garden season by the time I am ready for that, and we're just gonna have some composting machines. This thing is gonna go through food like crazy and give us some awesome veggie compost. I'm really excited to see how this progresses over the next few months. I'm really excited to add some of this vermicompost to my current setup in the garden. I hope you found this video helpful today. If you did, let us know. You can subscribe to Live Life Simple, and if you like the content, make sure you let us know by giving us a thumbs up. In the meantime, remember to live life simple, and we'll catch you next week.